All right, this video is going to talk to you about how do you make a multiplayer game. And so, with everything that you do in your sprites, each sprite has its own set of code that goes with it, and you put the code inside the sprite. So right here, I've got my Scratch Cat, and he's called Sprite number one. Now, what I would recommend is that you change the name to Player One, so you know which one is which, or P1, right? Whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call this P1, so I know that this sprite is Player number one. Now, when I do my Player One, I'm going to put my green flag here on Start, and then I'm going to do my Forever. So we'll put this Forever in here. And I'm going to do if, and what I'm going to do is do my if, and we're going to do my control. I'm going to find my keyboard command here, and I'm going to put in here my sensing if key, and if key, and we'll change this to whatever I want my player key to do. So I'm going to do the up arrow. If the up arrow is changed, I'm going to change my direction. So I'm going to do my motion, and I'm going to do change X by, and I'm just going to, for giggles, I'm going to make it a 5. So now here's what I've got. So when I hit the start button and I push the up arrow, oh, I didn't want to do my X. I need to change my Y. I got the wrong. I'm going to change that, change my Y. So I have my up arrow going with my y-axis, so change by 5. So I hit the green start button, and I've got my up arrow. There it is. So now I've got my Scratch Cat going the right direction. So if I wanted to make a second player game, I'm not going to go through how you set up all the rest of your commands to set up your shoot. There's all kinds of tutorial videos that you guys have. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a sprite. So I'm just going to go into the library to choose a sprite. And we're going to add somebody else in here. I'm going to add this Dinosaur 4. I'm going to add Dinosaur 4 in here, and I'm going to rename him, and I'm going to call Dinosaur 4 P2. So this is player 2. Now with everything, what I can do is if I want to make sure they're about the same size, I can scale them down. I'm going to have player 2 over here. I'm going to have player 1 over here. Now what's interesting is when I click on my player 1 sprite, I can see all of the code and the commands and things that I do for player 1. Now what I do for the player 2 sprite, I'm going to click on player 2 and I can write my code into there. So I'm going to again do my on start, repeat forever, and I'm going to do my if then. And what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to say, go into my sensing, and key is pushed, right? We're going to put in my key here, and keys pressed, and I'm going to change my key here, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to make this just be, I'm going to make this the 1 key. If I push the 1 key, what I want to have happen, and so I'm going to have my change my Y by, I'm going to change it by a positive value. I'm going to change it by 5 points, right? So now here's what I've got. If I push my up arrow, player 1 moves. If I push the 1 key, player 2 moves. Oh, let me hit the start button. There's a start button. Player 2 moves. Player 1, player 2, player 1, player 2, player 1, player 2. So you've just coded for your sprite. Now, considerations that you need to take into account for this is, what does the keyboard layout look like? Do I want to have the arrow keys on the right side of the keyboard be player 1 and the W, S, A, and D be player number 2? Do I want to have them right next to each other so it's W, S, A, and D and T, F, G, and H? You set up what you want to do looking at the keyboard and recognizing if you've got two people playing on the same Chromebook, how can they best use the keyboard to control their player? And the last thing you want to do is avoid making it with the spacebar shoots for both of them, because then one person hitting the spacebar would technically be controlling both of them. So you want to make sure that each player has unique commands for their sprite. Just like we did here, we can add other variables in. So I'm just going to show you here real fast when we code this in. I'm going to make a variable, or we're going to rename this variable. So this first one we've got for rename. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on right click on this variable. I'm going to rename this, and we're going to call this P1 score. So I know that this is the player one score, and I've got player one score. I'm going to put the checkbox on it so I can see where player one score is, and I've got it up top there. Then I'm going to make another variable, and for this variable, I'm going to make this P2 score, and I'm going to make it there again, and we'll put it up there. And so now I can have my player two score on one side of the screen, my player one score on one side of the screen, and you just would need to make sure that you've got whatever your commands are. If player one shoots a dodgeball and it hits player one gets a point. Player two shoots a dodgeball, so you're going to combine in that previous code you have on your when touches and how you do your scores and how I score variables, and you just add it a second time for player two. So everything, when you coded in your high score and your timers and all those things, you can set that up for player two as well. Good luck coding your multiplayer game.